Hello guys! Welcome to the fourth part of the SASS and Advanced CSS course. Today we are going to continue our header section with this call to action button. We're gonna add animation to it. So as you can see, we've ended up on this state. We actually have our button, but we doesn't have the nice looking animation. So let's implement it. We have our styles to this button here, and now the first thing that I want to do is to move this button a little bit when someone hover over it. So we can use the hover pseudo class, and we can use our end sign to do it and type hover, and as you can see it will appear when the button is hovered, and then I want to move it a little bit into the top. So I can use the property called transform, and inside of it I will use translate y to move it 3 rem into the top. So we need to add the -.3 rem. And we can see how it looks like. So when I hover over it, it moves to the top. But maybe it will look better when the animation will be inside of it. So we can do it by specifying the transition property and set it to elements that we want to transform or move or something like that. But also we can use the all parameter, and after that time that the animation will take, the duration of the animation. So I will use 0.4 seconds, 400 milliseconds, and when we save that, you can see that the button now is animated and it looks much better. So the second thing that we need to do is to give the animation when user clicks it. So it will be another pseudo class called active, and inside of it we can use also the translate y property on the transform, translate y, but now we'll move it to the bottom, so without the minus, let's say 0.1 rem, and we can test how it's working, and it looks really nice. So let's move back to the code, and now it's time to create our first pseudo element. The pseudo element is another HTML element that appears in the background of our normal element. So we don't need to add another HTML tag. We can use pseudo element to create another HTML element. Let me show you how it looks like. We'll use the pseudo element called after. So it will appear after our button element. First thing that we need to specify when we are creating pseudo elements is the content, and we can set it to nothing already because we don't want any text inside this pseudo element. The next thing that is important is to display it as a block and give it a width and a height. We want to have the same width and the same height like our button, so 100% everywhere. Also we want to have the same border radius, so we can copy it from here, and also the same background color. So now we want to specify the position of our element. We want to have positioned it in the left top corner of our button. So let me implement here the position and set it to absolute. Setting an element to position absolute, it means that it's aligned to a parent with a position set to relative. So we need to set the position on this button to relative. And when we've got that, we can specify here the top set to 0 and also the left set to 0 to have this element in the top left corner. We can also specify the z index set to -1 because we don't want to see this pseudo element, we want to see normal button. And as you can see, when we save that, we didn't really see any difference because the pseudo element is after after our button. So we can go back now to our header class and implement here our functionality. So when we hover over our button, our pseudo element will scale and grow, so we can see it to the pseudo element after. So as you can see, when the button is hovered, the after element will transform with scale x set to 1.2 and also scale y set to 1.3. So the element will grow when we hover over it. And when we save this file, we can see that now the element is shown to ourselves. But what we are missing here is the animation. And also we see this ugly border here. Maybe it's a bug or something like that. So let's go back to this code and implement here the animation. It will be with property transition like before, set to 0.4 seconds. And the last thing that we want to do is to make this button disappear, this pseudo element disappear when someone hover over it, to not making it stay as it is. So it will grow, and in the same time it will also make opacity, so it will also become transparent. And as you can see, with this property, this element now looks really cool. It grows and came back to this normal state when we hover over it. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next part of this course.